Hello, my name is Daniel Sweetser, and I'm reading through a novel just finished up, Hope Starts Small. And this morning we're going to start into chapter 3, Landing. I'm going to read chapter 3, part 1, The Barn. I also have a baby monitor in my ear, so we'll see if everybody stays asleep. The Barn. Frank and Constance's house search prior to listing their own home had been largely unfruitful. Most of the homes they had found presented major concerns right away. But early on in their search, there was a home that had been listed by a friend of their realtor. It had been unlisted shortly after Frank and Constance started house hunting, but the realtor's relationship made it possible for discussion and showings to happen nonetheless. The home was a converted barn, towering high, looking prim and proper. It had vinyl siding on the walls, a well-pitched and intact roof, and a friendly and welcoming front door. But as soon as Frank and Constance went into the house, the difficulties became apparent. It was functionally a duplex, although it was listed as a single-family home. There were 2 floors, but no way between them inside. This was the first hurdle. But then the second floor, where presumably Frank's family would live, giving Oma the downstairs, was just odd. Unusually short ceilings greeted you. There was no large living space, just an entryway. The bedrooms were large, but the family homeschooled, and Constance saw no place where that work could happen. There was no space to run either, no space to be crazy. How would they possibly survive being cooped up in the winter? Constance was not optimistic. There were enough concerns that Frank and Constance didn't go all in on what they began to refer to as the freaking barn. But as they continued their search, that barn always became the point of comparison. Was such and such house better or worse than the barn? The barn was ready to move in. Many houses were not. It had no visible need for major repairs, while many others did. It had a dedicated living space for Oma. This was really important for everyone. There were few, if any, houses in their price range that offered the same. And then there was the field. The barn was on a large rectangular lot with the house at the front and a sprawling lawn behind. And at the back, distinct from the areas designated for play and romping, was a beautifully square field. Frank was in love with that field. It was tucked away from the road. It was cleared of trees. It got plenty of sunlight. To Frank, it looked like the perfect home for his little blueberry plants. And being summoned. I think they're okay. When they had first visited, Frank had walked up and down that field, dreaming of straight, proper rows of blueberries. And in his mind, irrespective of all the concerns they had, this home was a perfect fit. Of course, Constance was used to his brain and eyed him warily, only finding comfort in knowing that while he didn't always make sense to her, at least he was willing to listen. So after that first visit, they left the barn, talked it through, and agreed together to keep looking. The next few places they saw were less promising. The house with the bowing foundation and the rotting ceilings. The house with lead in the water. The house that they got outbid on. The house with mold. And as they went, they would revisit the barn in their minds. Constance went so far as to try and figure out how they could arrange the rooms so she could function. She made a long list of necessary furniture purchases that would free up floor space and make things work. But they kept on looking because no matter how much they deliberated, the hurdles seemed just too great. However, as soon as they signed a contract with their buyer for the house in town, the dynamic changed. They were now facing a certain need to leave by a certain date. And while Frank, Constance, and the kids might have been able to manage being nomadic for a little while, Oma absolutely would need a place to softly land. And so, shortly after coming under contract, Frank and Constance agreed to put in an offer on the freakin' barn. They did so now with a certain confidence that this was the only way forward. Everything else was too expensive or in utter disrepair or too far from church. And so they put their energy toward making it work. Constance began ordering furniture that they would need on day one in the new place. They began giving away things that they knew could never fit in the barn. Frank would have his square field. Oma would have her own place and a soft landing. Constance would have plenty of new furniture, the salve in the wound, as it were. A wall-mounted entertainment center, a bunk bed with a slide for Zoe. Desks for the kids for school that could go in their rooms. A smaller crib for Lily. A very precisely designed couch that turned an entryway into a living room. They were going to make this work. They would have to. All right, thanks for listening. I hope you have an awesome day.